Yes, we are the Medicine Women. I am Brenda, and
I'm Jen.
so we have a lot of interesting energy that seems to be going around, and there's all of the way the energies of these planets, and people say, oh, that's just astrology, but they help with the ebbing of the emotional body, the personalities that they have affect who we are. They are a sort of a template type thing, but they help move the frequencies. Then there is the archetypes, which are templates, and they have their own frequencies and levels of to where you learn from the extreme left to the extreme right. And this is only language because it's crude, but English is that you have to divide, you have to compare, because we are in the world of polarity.
If it's not this, then it must be that.
And we're moving into the area where there's a third option. And it is part of that unity. It is learning to no longer separate and divide. And there has to be a transforming of the human in order for this to happen. To be just human is not an insult, but everybody gets insulted. There's dogma of constantly taking personally to just, oh, what the hell? Why'd they say that? And there's processes of not being able to process. Do you understand what I mean?
Right, it's if you say, oh, well, that just seems to be a very human insight. When I've said that to people, oh, it's like I flung poo at them or something, and they're like, oh, don't tell me I'm that. Because it's all about keeping up. Hey, wait, whoa! I gotta make it look like I'm looking good. I gotta save face and all that kind of stuff.
Well, a lot of this, what I noticed, comes from the simple fact that when somebody was learning, that they didn't know it, they could show it. But then all of a sudden, as time changed, you didn't know that? What's wrong with you? And those words alone, depending if the person has it on their life scale to heal, it can hurt. We are used to pain and suffering. We are taught that we're hardwired for pain and suffering, which isn't true. It's no longer true. When you are just in the human mindset, which is the state of heaven or the state of hell, there is a whole frequency all by itself. It's always extreme left, always extreme right, it's this or that. And even Swedenborg says about the states of mind.
Yes, heaven is a state of mind, and that his big revelation was that eternity is now. The spiritual world is having an influence upon us, and we're held in what's called a state of equilibrium. We have both influences, heaven and hell, upon us as we're moving through in this human form. And yes, they are realms that exist in beyond what we understand this life. The afterlife is what I'm trying to say. So there are states, but it's not a reward and punishment system. And it's up to us to discern when we die and when we're on the other side, well, how did we live our life and what resonates with us more than anything, and then that's a determining factor. And we're not cast by judgment. We go through that process of discernment, and we do that now while we're on earth.
When we are standing as one, that is, we all are one. But when we're in our human mindset, we are not all one. We see everything as it is supposed to be just this one way. There can't be this left, there can't be this right. So then people start choosing sides. And then those that want to come together, instead of uniting on the forefront of their true identity, they have to compromise. And then their ability to be who they are, they have to be vulnerable. And then they have to become paranoid. And they have to go through all these emotions. They're living in their emotional body. You don't have to have a pain body. The emotional body is there. And when you haven't been able to be vulnerable, which is completely safe with your authenticity, then you are living in just the human mindset. Becoming a spiritual human is all about understanding that you, who your true identity is, and not all these other identities of fear, of lack, of wounds, of pain, but you have a true identity, which is a balanced equilibrium of filing away all those bad memories, all of those belief systems, and then taking and disregarding. You actually watch the negative emotions dissolve because they are a chemical peptide. They have to be like a key, start it up, and dissolve itself out. But you are the one that has to learn these little insights, these little things. So becoming a spiritual human, it isn't about just, oh, I'm awakened and I'm smarter than you. Then what you're doing is you're
I have this enlightenment here. Let me give you a piece.
and that is not really allowing your higher self, which to be in charge. Your higher self is part of your true form. It is your connection, your, I should say, thumbprint, God's thumbprint. It is that one complete source. And when I say God, there are so many different meanings, but that's why they say, oh, look, there's all these different meanings to the word God. Because you got God and goddesses, and you have to understand those are people, and there is a hierarchy of humans to archangels that have genders. And how do you describe the genders that have the thumbprint of the great source? God and goddesses. But when we started to split hairs was when we really started to take the first Christian movement. And it could be way before that. But as I was shown today, you remember what by William, was it Durant or whatever?
Right, I was doing some research and came across this information.
And basically, can you kind of remember what it said in a nutshell? As far as...
I will see if I can pull it up on my
But as far as what he says is that basically, oh, we're going to do away with this belief system, religions and things, because it doesn't really fit. We want it to really fit. And so basically they got to sculpt how our society is today based on that religion. No, that one doesn't suit. Oh, that could, but no, let's find the right one. And so they weeded through all of these different things. And I was taking a shower this morning, and in my mind was, how come we don't take that third option and create, where we can create an awareness of, we like all these pieces out of all these different politicians, these different belief systems, these different religions, take the good, which we'll all argue about what is good, and then we start to divide it up. Good and bad. Really make that list, and then create somebody that will encompass all of that good and help to balance. But again, we can't agree because we're so disconnected from our true source of who we are, our true source of our identity, and our ego leads first. The reason we call it ego is because people didn't realize what it is. Ego is an electromagnetic guiding omni-apparition, and its main job was a lens so that you as a spirit, as a soul, can create your illusions, take all those frequencies and look through this particular lens to create life. Everywhere you look, it is an ego form. It's over-identifying with matter. Matter is everywhere. You can't, if you go into the science, this table is matter. And this only exists because we are looking through it through a lens. Mm-hmm. We feel it. We seem to go deeper, but then we get lost into the small little semantics, the little things that create the bigger whole. Because as we were talking before, it is when you go from what you can't see to what's unseen, and then when you use a microscope to see it, this whole other world exists. But those are like the Legos or the building blocks that help create and structure what we see, what we feel. But we are physical, mental, emotional, and spirit beings, and we got to stop cutting out the spiritual and say, oh, it has to be a religion. We all have to follow it. It is that coexisting, and as I was telling her, I don't done coexisting. I want to co-thrive. I want to take the best parts out of each religion and help that be my foundation. And anything where I'm judging, hating, hurting, I need to resolve that and file away all of those pains and aches because that was part of the foundation. And not to say, oh my God, leave my past behind. My past is always going to be part of me. You cannot be a fetus you can't be an adult without being a fetus first. It's part of your foundation. Instead of denying it, cutting it out, you resolve it, if this makes sense. All right, so getting back to what the piece of information that was brought to light, Jen.
So, what started as a religious movement within first century Judaism became a few decades after the end of this period the state church of the Roman Empire, as well as a significant religion outside the empire. And according to Will Durant...
Now this is very important, please listen.
The Christian church prevailed over paganism because it offered a much more attractive doctrine and because the church leaders addressed human needs better than their rivals.
And so it is, I think my stuff works more than yours, is what it really boils down to. Again, it is a hierarchy. It is, I mean, because another part I was thinking about is, where did the first leader come from? Where did the first, queen, king, where did the first president, where did all this firstness come from that said you had to lord over us? They may be great leaders to help you to survive and to move forward. And what if we do this? What if we do that? And we have a tendency to forget that we can upgrade. If anything in this day and age with computers, really things that we've learned is you buy a brand new computer, it works beautifully, but then all of a sudden it starts to get old. Doesn't mean it's bad, it just needs to be upgraded, fine-tuned, tweaked. It needs to be balanced within the forever changing energy that's happening. The people that move forward in businesses and thrive for years and years and years is because they're on the cutting edge of anticipating, not of fear, but anticipating there's a movement and looking and noticing, ooh, so they're learning to read the code instead of what is always in your face. Oh, I always get red lights. Oh, I always get this, all the bad stuff. They're reading the code of, ooh, I see something change. Let's look in this direction. And it's their desire.
Oh man, I had a thought and I lost it.
Okay, so she lost the thought. Okay, so what we want you to understand is that there's a lot of things that we throw out, and they're just not to talk. We are not here to rant and bitch. We'll let other people do that.
I got it back. It reminds me of what my awesome goddaughter told me.
Oh?
She said, "You're not old, Aunt Jen. You're just outdated."
Yeah.
So I was in need of a couple upgrades.
Mm-hmm. And this world is based on, okay, will it sell? Well, sex sells. Then you pique the sensory system of a person, and then it touches the desire that, oh yeah. So then there's violence. Then there's fear. I was watching my Facebook page, and I have several of them, and what I've noticed is that people don't report good news. When you listen on the news, do you really hear good news?
Not really, because it doesn't have that emotional tug or pull to go. You don't have. With good news, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of really cool. It's more passive than.
But it's the
than
ratings.
That emotional pull.
Mm-hmm. It's the ratings. It's like when I was writing in my dissertation. If you walked by a newspaper stand and they're selling newspapers, and on the front of the newspaper says "Bright and Sunny Day," would you really stop and buy the newspaper unless it's part of your habit? Or if it says, you look at it and says, "Oh my God, a bad storm and 10 killed," what's it do?
You want to find out what happened.
Because of curiosity, you want to find out what happened. And so then you're pulled, and it's all about the sales. It's all about how, what is this all about? Well, the next stage, I'm taking a risk, because I always say talk and teach and do what is the norm. But we know that we're supposed to break that norm, because norm is a moving target, right?
Norm!
Explain.
From Cheers. Norm. So my dad, he is this awesome, he's just been literally a character in my life. Absent-minded professor comes to mind. But he said, I don't know, it's been a few years, well, normal is a moving target, which seems to be, that seems to be like his motto if he had one. Normal is a moving target, and a bunch of us said, why? Why is it a moving target? He said, because by definition, it's a societal, agreed upon set of beliefs or norms. So it's a culture that agrees that this has become the norm. So that is what normal. He goes, so it's a moving target. It's going to change in a few years anyway.
Exactly.
Why pay attention to it? What's normal? Why be normal?
Exactly. And so we're breaking free from what was considered focusing on the human needs. The human needs of what exactly did the church really want to convey? You know, there's a lot of speculation and stuff that happens there, but what are we looking at the human needs? Yes, we want to make sure they're fed, we want to make sure they survive, we want to make sure they stay warm. But has that been lost? I don't know. That could be a question that we need to learn to ask. If we had only 30 seconds left to live, what would be our last words? Those are a very deep thing to think about. Really, can you come up with it, or will you go die, 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 and then just say, I don't want to answer it? You know, it is a very profound question, because profound is what you need in order to help you awake. Profound needs you to be able to step back and get out of that blame game, you know. But sometimes people get so profound and they come up with great answers, and then you come up with something different or better, and then they want to slam you. There's all of this tension, all of these fighting that actually can be resolved, because we have moved into the resolution era. This is the next generation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after this. With you, becoming a spiritual human is not hard, but it's not easy either. One of the things that
I was going to say, yes, it's not hugely difficult, but it's
a process.
It's a process, and it takes a person who's willing to engage in it and make the effort, because that's what it's about.
Now, of course, I'm going to ask her questions that are going to throw her out of sync. But, you know, that we have stages of grief, and see if anybody can remember them, or she can look at them online.
Yeah, but Kubler-Ross,
but it's the stages of grief, but it's what's important is to understand that you take grief, and there's stages to go through it. I noticed that we have strategies, which are stages to go through a particular thing. A shock that had happened to me, my part of what I was been discovering as far as the stages is that after the shock, what are you supposed to do? You still have to function, because you physically, the next day appears. Time moves forward, and you chronologically age. So you have to go through some form of stage to get out of that one, to get out of that one, to get out of that one. Usually people use anger to get out of depression. Now, I looked at my particular stage of the shock, and the next stage that went after was hopelessness. The feeling was you're digging your gold mine, you know you're so close, and all of a sudden you get all these slams in your face. And at that point you're like, I have no strength left. You literally feel it leave you. Your voice changes. Now, let me explain this. You have 12 notes, and those 12 notes help you physically, mentally, and emotionally function every single day. Those 12 notes are inside of you. So when hopelessness kicks in, your organs change, the vibration, the frequency of your voice changes. And people can tell, because you have 10,000 gestures before you even speak. Can you imagine when you speak how many more gestures you have? And so what happens is that I went into the state of hopelessness. And there's really don't feel like there's any joy. You function, you work, you do what you need to do, but there's no smile on your face.
It's like you're a shell.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about the facial feature of me is that people think that I'm unhappy all the time. I have been in a state of shock, grief, where hopelessness and hope, which is funny because the name of my business is called Giving Hope. God has been doing its best, or great sources, to give me hope, and now I'm supposed to give hope to other people. And what I've studied and what I've learned is that you have a potassium, I can't remember which side, but each side of the mouth is where your lips come together, each side. One is where the minerals and stuff of potassium and sodium are. And when you have been lacking in those areas, it throws your electrolytes off, but it also causes the frowning on the face. Even if you're not prone to sickness, you may be prone to an emotional draining. And I noticed that when the hopelessness kicked in, you know, like I said, I functioned. And my husband says, oh my God, we got to give you life. We got to get you happiness. We got to get you to thrive. And I says, I am. He goes, no, you're not. And, you know, my frown in the face got more showing. But this is the wear of the world of the time passes of what you know, you got saggy thoughts. No. what if you don't have any thoughts? The biggest thing that people will tell me when I say, let's heal indifference, well, that's a good thing. Not necessarily. It's the non-feeling, non-functioning, hopeless state. It's more than that. It's just deeper into,
The Eeyore.
what happens is literally those, you don't have no thoughts. And so you can't connect with the thought. But if you have it so repetitive, you don't even have to have thoughts. Your body will just kick in and say, this is how you're going to act. Without your brain really saying, hey, what? No, you can't really consciously make a choice. So as I went through shock, went through hopelessness, and yesterday was that I just wanted to be mean. And that's the anger. Anger will pull you out of fear. It pulls you out of those states. Because it's just the way that it charges you up to move forward. And my husband says, well, you weren't really mean. Well, I certainly wasn't receiving. He was doing his best to make me smile, drive-by kisses, whatever he could to get me to be happy. And again, I was explaining to my husband, it's great that you want to make me happy, but no one can really make me happy except for myself. And when I can really accept that part, then it's great when other people want to have the relationship of creating joy and peace within the relationships, because you're in sync. So think about the stages. Do you remember at all what your stages were?
I could go get the piece of paper that has that information.
Why don't you go do that?
Okay.
And so
BRB.
we do jam sessions, and jam sessions are usually where we will take the moment of the day and whatever sparks our soul that we need to talk about, if we feel like we're out of sync or something just stuck out like a sore thumb, and we'll talk about it. Now, the planets affect us. And we were taught a long time ago that, oh, you're just an individual, you can't affect the whole. But that's not true. You do affect the whole. You participate in the group consciousness. You are the one that creates the foundation of how the earth is going to be, how the world's going to be, and how your world as you know it's going to be. So as we learn to live amongst each other, we create entanglement cords between people. When the emotional entanglement cord becomes uncleansed, dirty, something that's in the way, then you will learn to feed off those negativities. Now the other part that is find very interesting is that even though I have my strength, my protection, I'm still easily influenced by certain frequencies because those are the signatures that I have to address and heal that still need to be resolved. Doesn't mean anything about me being a bad person. And I'm not ashamed of it. There's no reason to. So we were looking at what energy she was going through, which was affecting mine. Whatever I was going through is going to create a reaction out of her. We both have our shit, but when our shit starts to collide, what happens? Okay?
Worlds collide!
Yeah, a major mess. Okay, so then it becomes so dirty that you can't tell whose world is doing what. And so you want to blame, but at the same time, you're both are responsible for creating that moment. So as I was going through the state of hopelessness, because it was a shock, what did you in your world do?
I figured that on some level I had done something wrong because that's the lesson that I've been unpacking, and thanks to Mercury retrograde, amped it up just enough to, give that extra kapow if I wasn't really addressing it. So I felt, I don't know what I had done, but I had done something wrong. I had affected our friendship, our business, whatever you want to say, that, normally we have our routine and we were going to have our downtime and when we have our jam sessions, and something told me, I'm like, well, I don't feel like she's going to be, knocking on my door or letting me know that it's time to participate in that. So, because I pissed you off, I did something, I had done something wrong to affect our friendship.
Now remember, I'm sitting there in my stage of hopelessness. What was running through my head was, oh my God, so everything is going to be enhanced, because when you're in a state of stress, which can be hopelessness, and anything, you can't think your way out of the paper bag. So anything that needs to be resolved is going to come to the surface, be your reality, and enhanced with such rotten flavors, I want to say. It's just, the colors are so distorted that you can only go into delete, distort, and generalize in such a fine-tuned aspect that you want to turn around and go, they did it, she did it, that did it, oh, that did it, because you're trying to find a assuredness, a certainty that life is going to be okay. So you have, the only way that we were taught before how to resolve it was to finger point. Was I angry at her? No. And yes. Was it her? No. Was it her signature? Yes. Was there certain things that it was trigger inside of me that I thought I had lost? Yes. Things inside of me that I couldn't process? Yes. But was it her? No. And this is where it gets confusing. But as I got up and walked through, her light was off. Oh, that's interesting. Now, granted, I was like, well, I'm not going to scratch on her door. But I already knew that that was a self-talk of the child part of me that created it. So my 3-year-old's creating it. But the adult part of me, which is in the higher self, goes, well, that's an interesting self-talk. Look at how you had to survive. Look what you did and what you did. So I'm walking by, I'm going, oh, seriously? Now, I know she ain't asleep. What do I do? Storm in there, wake her ass up? What do I do? Now, granted, that's probably what she wants me to do. Nope, I'm going to do something different. Because I don't want. I'm in a state of hopelessness. I don't even want to move my feet. So I had gone and sat down at my desk. Oh, she'll just have to get her ass out here. And then I opened up my Facebook, and there she had wrote me stuff, and I'm like, well, that explains it. Get your freaking ass out here now. La 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 la, because she wants to know everything's all right. You know, I sent her 1,000 things on Facebook wall, privately and publicly, and I'm like, seriously, I'm not walking in there. If she wants to go one night without having it, which, again, look at how the self-talk kicks in, then that's just too bad. No.
Right, and I'm in there pouting going, I did something wrong. And
yeah, we're telling you this not so that
right.
you can laugh at us. It's okay to
well,
laugh.
it might be entertaining.
Yes. But we want you to understand that we're also not vulnerable that you're going to hurt us. We're standing in our authenticity, explaining to you that we're human. We're also spiritual humans. And when we're in that human state, we know it's a process of an unfoldment to see how our behavior is, our mental body, our emotional body, and what is it really playing out. So we know we have to go through this particular lesson, but in the same time, we don't have to be lost in it. So then what happened?
Well, what hit was that whatever was going on emotionally or whatever, as I wrote you that message, I thought to myself, wow, this process of whatever I did in my young childhood that was sustained day in and day out, day in and day out, and that was part of my routine up until the point, it was in my senior year in high school when I attempted suicide. I can see now how that part of my foundation, that loss, thinking I did it wrong, I'm affecting all this. I took on the burden of my parents' divorce. All of that, not to mention what was going on the spiritual side of things, of whether or not I was going to wake up to these abilities or not, which is a whole, so you have both of those things happening at the same time. But I got it, that when I wrote, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my foundation of clinical depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then once, I'm laying there and I'm like, I can't cry myself to sleep. It's been forever since I've done that. I don't do that anymore. And so then I thought, well, man, I don't know. And then I opened up and I saw you had like 5,000 things on Facebook. Oh, maybe that's what I was feeling, was like tug.
Get your ass in here. I'm not playing this game.
Homie, don't play that.
I let you dwell in your hell, but you know what? I'm not going to let you live there. So get your ass in here. You know who I am. Get in here.
Right, so then what we unpacked, before I do that, we alluded to the stages of grief. So this is the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler, the 5 stages of grief. And the beginning is denial, then anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. So then, being familiar with that, what we unpacked was my stages of, spin out mode, turn my world upside down, whatever you want to call it. But there is a process of how that happens. So, event happens, shock. Then I go into spin out. I begin attacking others. I only see or hear pain and hurt. That's all I can process.
Now you have to understand, this comes from a tonal person. Everybody has a specific sensory system they use when they're stressed. It becomes very dominant. Hers is tonal. Keep going.
Then I have to recover. There's another angle to address. Then I go into denigration, depression, hopelessness and despair, and then that's where I get into the I can't get out and wallow stage.
Yes. So it's important to understand that when I call them strategies, people don't really think about it. But when I call them, what do you call it?
Coping?
No, sorry, not strategies, but stages, then it almost looks differently. Let's go back real quick to understand this. There's strategies, stages, and then there's levels, and there's different degrees. The problem is people think there's only one stage, one level, one degree, and one of everything. And there's a right way to do it, and then there's a wrong way to do it. They don't think that there's anything else in between. So as you grow on a spiritual evolution, not one is better than the other. It is the stages of your awareness of how much you're getting it. Nobody wants to admit somebody's smarter than them, and everybody loves the idea that somebody's dumber than them. And it goes into this competition, this fighting, this non-peace. You're falling out of sync. You have to save face. You have to prove that you're smart. And the biggest phrase that people say is, "I know that," as to say, "Shut up."
You can't tell me I'm wrong, or that I don't know something, or yeah, I learned that.
Yeah, and
I ain't stupid. You call me stupid? You call me stupid?
Yep. And some of you may be hearing some noises in the background, and that's my husband. He just got home from work, and he had gone shopping for groceries. Yay! Say hi. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, that's what he's going to do. We're getting quick to take a break, so we'll hopefully take a break right now, and that way we don't hear all the bags. I'll help him unfold them, and we'll be back after this. And we're back. Now, I don't like to go over everything to drag it out, but I also don't like to fly by things because there's definitions in that needs to be important. It's called gems. So as we look at her stages, we're going to point out certain gems.
Okay.
Okay? So when you have the event that happens, everybody understands there's an event. Okay? The shock process.
Mm-hmm.
I think her shock went into when I went into shock. I got a piece of bad news, and it was just one last thing, like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was one last thing.
And you had pulled your energy away and became very insular, and I couldn't feel where your energy was, which was part of my anchoring process of going through the day. So it was like, then I took it on myself of, oh, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
I must have done something wrong to affect that.
So by pulling, and I'm glad she put it that way. When people interact, our energies are intermingling in that entanglement cord. When I pulled my energy away, and it's been proven, in my world, and I know there's other stuff out there, that children, when you pull your energy away to do dishes and other things, kids cry because they are bonding on frequencies. And you don't grow out of that. You are still going to be doing this. And as I pulled mine away to just go in
your contemplation mode, whatever you were processing.
And so what it did was caused her to spin out because her foundation was gone. And so then, in order to get it back, you're going to feel around in the dark, which in a way was to attack others, because what was her spin out like? And she told you, she blamed herself. Did you see that ghost go by? Did you just see that? Anyways, we just had an interesting little apparition walk by. Hello.
I've been catching things out of the corner of my eye.
Well, that was a very strong one. I thought, what the heck? Okay, anyway, attacking others is your way of saying, you blamed me, you hurt me, you just said it was my fault. Now, we have been viewing how our paths are unfolding, I'm going in a different speed than she is. Again, it's not who's better than one another, it is where you're at. And I'm always telling her, come on, catch up. You know, we can't do this next part of our relationship until she is where she needs to be. So,
and it's just all these, we call them dregs and floaters spiritually, of issues that are coming to the forefront. And this is a huge chunk of understanding and unpacking, because it was part of my foundation to the point where it led to my clinical depression.
And, you know, as a soul coach, I have to remember, I assigned myself to that, yes, I'm going to do this. I agree. And she knows, and this is where it got confusing, because the emotions got high, stress happened, 80% of the blood leaves your brain, and other shit comes to the surface. But when she got home, we had to pick her up because she had rented a car from the airport. And as we were coming home, the moment she got in the car, she was already in a state of stress, anger, frustration of what was going on. And somebody's yelling at her saying, you should have done it this way. And she's like, if you don't like it, you do it. But she was in that state. Now, I had an awesome day. As soon as she got in the car, bam! That energy took over. And as that, we're all looking at a bug, so people watching the camera what we're doing. Okay. There was a bug.
Because you had talked about an apparition, I'm catching things out of the corner of my eye, and it's like...
Anyway, that was an actual bug. Okay. But all of a sudden,
something.
Yes, we got dust flying out of the air. Wonderful.
You're welcome.
I don't know what this all is. Just shit that's kind of settling, coming to the surface, and landing on.
Well, distracting, because this is so deep, and it's in my personal whatever processing. I, in the past, have felt that if I'm going to put my toe in the water to actually examine how deep this pool of depression goes, my fear is that it will swallow me whole. So I'm seeing these distractions as a way to kind of keep me
grounded.
It's
that familiarity, because if you ever watched Inception, they had a thing they spun, so they know the difference between reality and not reality.
Right at the top. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things that occurred is, as we are beginning to interface, she's in the back seat, I'm getting ready to drive, obstacles began to happen.
Oh my gosh, and being from LA, it's still fascinating to me all the different kinds of farm equipment there are. And they're ginormous.
In this case, it's big ass farm equipment.
Piece of equipment going down the road. I'm like, I didn't even know that could fit on the road, but it did. It proved to be a ginormous obstacle. And you're welcome.
Yes. Now, prior to that, some of you have heard the story before. Prior to that, she was already going into the dilemma, and so her soul told me, oh, you're going to be doing this, this, and this probably this weekend, not to do the power of suggestion. She understands that this stuff is sitting there, so it was very familiar to her.
I had to pay attention.
It wasn't something that she had to go and go, oh my God, I got to figure this out, or focus and make sure it's right or wrong. It was shit.
Just see if red flags come up, pay attention to them.
So, as we were leaving that morning, it all began. We couldn't really go the way we were going to go because there had to be a fleet of trucks and cars and whatever. I'm surprised there wasn't a bicycle with a monkey or something. I'm like, seriously, this is a damn circus act driving by. I'm not following that energy. I'm in charge of my world, damn it. Now I'm getting pissed because I know her world is interfacing with mine and cutting mine all up. No. So I drove straight. And everything was good until we get a bus. And I'm like, okay, school buses, I understand. And again, I said no, I'm going to acknowledge. Now this is how you can really stop the world from spinning out. I'm going to acknowledge something is happening, and now I will pay attention as I'm trying and solve this issue. I agree to this. And so then all of a sudden...
It was clear sailing.
Yeah, no other obstacle. So I says, you ready to talk about this stuff? Because
if
you're not, I'm going to, because I'm going to have a clear road ahead of me.
Sure, let's talk.
She's like, before I have to get in the car and drive all where I'm going? No! All right, fine. She knew. She knew that I had made an agreement with the universe, and the universe was going to make it completely cooperative as long as I chose to participate. Mm-hmm. And that's conscious participation. Let's say that word again. Conscious, not constipation, conscious participation. And that conscious participation, God, good gravy.
Participation.
Conscious
Participation.
is all about how you understand that the universe is communicating with you. How your soul wants to communicate, but you are not paying attention. So the universe is going, hello, you need to hear this. Wake up, pay attention, we want you to resolve this. Can you, hello. And so I agreed that I'm going to acknowledge, pay attention, and listen, and resolve. So that's a huge thing on becoming a spiritual human. So we talked about stuff, it worked. But then on the way home, like I said, everything was going great in my world. I get her in the car, and then all of a sudden, this. And I said, you know what? I may not know these back roads, but I know that if I go in that direction, I'm going to get home.
Right, there's the sun, that way's home, there are roads in between.
And I have good sense heading, and some of you will laugh, especially if you're gamers, because EQ would always say, push the sense heading in the old days, so that you would build up which way you know. Is it left? Is it right? Is it north? Is it south? Which way? So I have good sense heading. And so I said, oh well, and we discovered a whole new path home, which was great.
Right, and as this was unfolding, I had complete faith that you were going to get us there. There were points where I said, oh, we could go that way. Oh, we could go that way. But it's like, no, you have actually lived in this part of Michigan longer than I've been in the States. So.
And here's the part that really was the clue finding. Not only was she creating big kick-ass obstacles in our way to slow us down to maybe 2 miles an hour to get all the way for a 45-minute drive, it was also because I said, you know what, I'm choosing a different pathway. What happens is that we can follow the rut of our negativity, of our routine, of our fears, of our stuff that sits there, or we can start creating new pathways. And that's what I thought was so interesting, was because I'm going to take this road and see what happens. And which was, I was creating a new pathway and I was trusting. I didn't have to go and go, oh my God, we're lost. No, it's a new pathway. And you get to where you need to go when you are paying attention. I knew there was something that she needed to do. But she wasn't going to talk to us. She was in her hell. She was in her own little space. And it's like, seriously? I have the fallout? No. I knew that I also have to be aware because I'm also her soul coach.
Right, and I knew that you were going to create a clean way, that if I came, in the 3 years that I have been the person to take the kids on these retreats, nothing, I mean, there might have been small little glitches. This was a major, glaring rock just thrown in my path of what was going on. And I knew that when I got in, I'm like, and you just said, just leave her alone. I'm like, please just, whatever my shit is, just be the soul coach that's good, just gonna, I know we'll clean this up and resolve it. But in this moment right now, this is just, there's actually in the Bible the land of sucketh, and I felt that that's where I was.
Now, we had began where we left off. We were on a good note when we left, but we were ready to be open to look at all the shit and the red flags and all the things we discussed in the car to explain that what will probably could unfold because this is what's in her face. So when she got back in the car, I would apparently resumed back into soul coach mode, and so we're going to start looking at all these red flags, bitch slaps, and all these little things that had
this person on the phone yelling at me that I'm doing it wrong and I don't know what I'm doing. And I was about to pull the bitch please card out because, and that's Reverend bitch please. You know, as
that's right.
as I've
Reverend
been this person that's been doing this, and no. And then the other person who was texting me right after this person got off the phone to tell me I don't know what I'm doing. No.
Yeah.
And so my attitude was fine. And that's a red flag because I have not been in that space for a very long time.
So we had to note all of those little peaks and valleys, the things that she couldn't process, the things that how she was told to process. And then, of course, the stages of where she was going. So, as we get a little further, like I said, she had the shock, the spin out, attacking others, and then she was on seeing
or hearing, whatever my sensory system was, of pain and hurt. That's all my lens that was
So
on.
when the lady was talking to her phone, there was a great amount of pain. Because she
Because
didn't want to do
how
it the
dare
way
you how
she
dare you
chose.
tell me that I don't know what I'm doing, and that hurts because
That's the way she heard it.
right.
But the lady was delivering it was, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I would have done this. I would have done that. And
Because I'm not somebody who actively looks for a fight either.
right. Okay, but this was all yesterday and the day before. This is the retrograde. This is the thing that, we'll go back to this story, was that, again, I was in my own space. I pulled my energy away to go into what I needed to. She spins out because she can't find the familiarity of her foundation. And so then she must think it's her fault. She has to go through and all this stuff. And it is 555. That represents change if anybody's looking at the clock. But if you're in another time zone, sorry about that.
It might
It'd
be
be 444.
455 or 355.
But it is those stages that now you have to hear. What's very important is that when you hear other people taking offense, that creates a pain into itself, into the core, where you feel it's your fault. Now, I know you totally spun out, didn't hear a damn thing I said, so should I quiz you? No. Are we supposed to talk about it? Yes. Let's try this again. Okay? You ready?
You had pulled yourself away and I couldn't find my grounding.
Okay, that was before.
Yes.
Now we're talking about when people take offense.
Oh, when people take offense to what I do? Or when I take offense?
You see me. I see you just took offense. When you sat there, she was eating her sandwich, and she's like, oh, duh! And then she had to explain it like I was stupid. Again, this is my lens, this is my belief system. And I saw her because that's my dominant
sensory system.
yes, the process. And so then what she heard, I said, she's mocking me or whatever it was, and then she heard it. So,
Why are you telling me that I'm mocking you?
yeah.
I
So,
didn't do anything.
it is when we observe the other person going through taking it personal, or taking it personally, okay? When that, would you stop looking at me with that energy? When that occurs,
Stop looking at me, that tone of voice.
yeah, stop looking at the tone away, exactly. Stop speak to me with those eyes, damn it. But anyways, it's the energies. So she heard it, and all she could do was hear their pain, which meant they had to give her pain, and now it's all about that process of how to make sure you got to inflict your pain onto their pain because they did it to you, and it gets such a mess.
I see your pain, and I raise it. I'm taking offense.
Yes. Now, then there was the stage after that happened with denigration. Denigration
What is your...
is that when you also go into the stage of, okay, I can't fight anymore, I'm at that, and so then you start to make sure you talk bad to yourself. But when people are speaking to you, you beat them to the punch and start denigrating yourself in front of them as a way to try to dissolve the energy around
Well,
it.
you can't, I'm not going to let you hurt me by what you're going to say, so I'm going to do it first. And oh yeah, this shirt, yeah, I don't know why I wore this today.
I was walking through and my husband says, oh, you better watch out knocking things over. I said, yeah, my ass can get big sometimes. Oh, well. I mean, you make denigrating comments and you agree to what you think they're thinking anyway because that darn RTJP. And it gets to the point where you have to pay attention to these stages. Now, the other one that you went right to from denigrating to once that stage was over was
Depression. Like, okay, well, then there's nothing that I can do. There's nothing I can say, and I'll just live in this. No matter what I say, no matter what I do, even if I insult myself, it's not making a difference, then meh.
and it becomes
I will take myself out of the equation emotionally.
Then there is stages to depression. But what was interesting, because we addressed each one of those like in a day, we didn't really get to let them to, you got to develop it for at least 3 or 4 days. Even though I sent her the memo, oh, this is what I want you to heal. she ignored that memo and raised it, I'm not going to. Because she had to have that mourning process of doing that, okay?
Don't tell me what to do.
We're going to talk about that later when it comes
For
to
example.
what she thought she lost. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back after this.